Imagine with me a local junior high and high school. Not far from your home in your neighborhood, with students roughly about as young as 11 and as old as 18 years of age in your neighborhood going to this junior high and high school. Right down the street is a man named Rick. Rick's a successful business owner. He owns a great plumbing company, and he's very well respected in both the neighborhood and also in the business community. He has an MBA and graduated top of his class. But you know, Rick's on some hard times. With inflation, it's been tough to run a business, and also it's tough to find good talent and good licensed plumbers for his plumbing business. But Rick heard about this brand new constitutional amendment that just passed that made a so-called fundamental right to reproductive health. While it wasn't said specifically in the document, surely things like feminine pads, tampons, and menstrual cups might apply to this reproductive health. So Rick ordered a wholesale case and placed a sign in his yard advertising pads, tampons, and menstrual cups. Certainly PG-13 tonight. The teenage girls love the convenience of stopping by Rick's garage and pick up these essential products. And Rick was a friendly guy. We like Rick. He's well respected. And after all, it keeps me from having to talk to mom and dad about this sensitive topic. Rick, after a time, decided to add condoms, lubricants, and a variety of sexual enhancement devices to his business. And I'll tell you, the HOA was not happy. Anyone who's ever dealt with an HOA knows what I'm talking about. This quiet neighborhood had standards, so they had a meeting and they passed a bylaw, or a change to the bylaws prohibiting retail sales in your neighborhood. You know, Rick wasn't going to go that easily, and so Rick filed a lawsuit against his homeowners association and hired a female lawyer to defend him in court. The lawyer argued that paragraph 2 in this new amendment says that these different items should be included in reproductive health. She also argued that paragraph 3 says, quote, any denial, interference, delay, or restriction of the right for reproductive freedom shall be presumed invalid. She also argued paragraph 5, saying that Rick could not be, quote, penalized, prosecuted, or otherwise subjected to adverse action for, quote, assisting a person in exercising their right to reproductive freedom with the person's consent. The HOA further argued that Rick doesn't carry any insurance, he doesn't have a business license, and doesn't pay any sales tax for the products that he is selling. But given the sweeping nature of the language in Amendment 3, this judge sides with Rick, allowing him to continue selling these products out of his garage. Emboldened by the successes he just had in court, Rick calls his friend at the wholesaler for the local pharmacy down the street. Rick convinces his friend to ship birth control and Plan B morning after pills directly to his door. And in fact, for Rick, these were a huge success because he could sell them for 20% cheaper than the guys down the street. And they didn't even need a prescription when they get these things. And sure enough, the health department caught wind of what was happening here. So the health department, along with the police, come knocking at the door. and they're ready to shut him down. And sure enough, they did shut him down, but Rick was vigilant. And sure enough, he shows up in court again with his attorney, who argues paragraph 5 yet again, that you cannot, quote, penalize, prosecute, or otherwise subject him to adverse actions. This time the judge says, enough is enough. You can't just continue to distribute medication out of your garage, rejects these claims, and sends him away with fines and penalties. But Rick appeals to the Supreme Court, where 7 unelected judges hold his fate. With a slim margin, the judges actually side with Rick because of the, quote, constitutional right to reproductive freedom clearly gives him full immunity as long as he is assisting others with exercising this new right. Rick now receives national attention and praise for this and purchases a small commercial building a few blocks away. He begins to hire people who have some level of medical training and to do a few less invasive things, such as IUD birth control placement, STI treatment and testing, HPV and hepatitis B vaccines, vasectomies, and prenatal ultrasounds. It seems like Rick is being dragged into court every single day for violating laws like state income tax, property taxes, zoning laws, workman's comp, unemployment insurance, reporting requirements, and violation of safety standards. The problem is most time these cases he wins, because in Amendment 3, the fundamental right to reproductive freedom trumps all other state and local laws on the books. As Rick looked to the future in further into this amendment, he saw a possible funding opportunity. In fact, in paragraph 6, it says, quote, "The government shall not discriminate against persons providing or obtaining reproductive health care or assisting another person in doing so." The key word there was discrimination. So he applies for state funding of all of the procedures that he is doing, and initially he was denied. Yet he wins in court yet again, allowing him to bill the state for all of his programs. You and so many in your neighborhood are furious, and you appeal to the FBI, because certainly they're going to enforce the federal laws that he is violating. And the FBI takes a brief look at what's happening, and they say to you that this is a states' rights issue, and you have to deal with this at the local level. Note, Rick has not done one abortion. He doesn't want to attract the pro-life attention at all, at least not yet. Rick instead gets into the single most lucrative business in this area, and that's so-called gender-affirming care. The teenagers who have been coming to him for cheap birth control without their parents' permission are now being told that they can reverse the effects of puberty by taking these hormone blockers. Later that month, he was approached by a physician who offered to do transgender surgeries at his office. Rick is ecstatic and brings yet another person onto his team. Finally, after about a year providing all kinds of unlicensed, quote, reproductive health, Rick hears about a court case with Planned Parenthood. And this court case, Planned Parenthood just won, that removes yet more protections for women who are going through abortions. This time, it's medical malpractice insurance requirements, it's doctors' requirements, and also waiting periods. This clears the way for Rick to dispense his very first abortion pill. This time, he is backed by a $1 billion abortion industry. It takes him about 6 months to figure out where to get rid of these fetal remains from surgical procedures, but he's amazed when a local university agrees to take them for experimental purposes. The last 2 years for Rick have been tough. First, his plumbing business was declining. Then the mountain of court cases and legal fees, but yet today, he's doing great. He's got a full team of people on his team, and he's pleased to be able to beat down court battle after court battle after court battle. As Rick's business is netting over $1 million per year in profit, he looks forward to adding so many different things, like birthing centers, mammograms, in vitro fertilization, egg and sperm freezing, erectile dysfunction treatments, cancer treatments for the breast, ovaries, uterus, and prostate, including surgeries, chemotherapy, and radiation, none of which have any oversight whatsoever. The sky is the limit for Rick, and as long as he's helping a person of any age exercise their, quote, fundamental right to reproductive freedom, Rick, his staff, his suppliers, and the pharmaceutical companies are in the clear. Ladies and gentlemen, if Amendment 3 passes, how many Ricks will there be? Too far-fetched? Maybe. But we were told a few years ago, when we were asked to legalize, quote, limited medical marijuana, that it would be limited to just that. But today it's available in every single street corner. You know, I'm not here to debate marijuana, and I'm surely not here to debate whether or not abortion is morally good or evil. I'm here for the thousands of young people. I'm here for my own daughters, and I'm here for the millions of men and women in Missouri who will be hurt if this amendment passes. If the abortion lobby wanted legal abortion in the first trimester while maintaining safeguards for women, they could have done that. But they didn't. This was thoughtfully and methodically worded, and 3 times in the language, it gives full immunity to every person who's involved in reproductive health. Whether it's menstrual pads, C-sections, breast exams, birth control, hysterectomies, or abortion. So let's just take a few moments to take a look at the actual language that we are being asked to pass here and see how far the rabbit trail goes. Okay, that was my opening statement. We'll see about the rest of it. And thank you for entertaining me with regards to my crazy story about Rick. But I don't think it's all that far-fetched. There are elements of this that can be applied to many of the different, both existing facilities that are here in the state of Missouri, but then also, obviously, the existing Planned Parenthoods who are here as well. So let's take a look at the language. You guys should all have this sheet here in front of you, and we'll see And my wife and I have decided to turn 40 this year, and she has, I know. She has been wearing glasses her entire life, and I need them occasionally, and she laughs at me. So, by the way, can everyone hear me okay in the back? Is the echo too bad? Okay, good. Okay, so just kind of go down here. So section 1 here is just the title. So we don't have to really worry about the title. The Right to Reproductive Freedom Initiative. Well, they're just trying to make something up there. So we'll just kind of read through this and see how that applies to Rick, and also how it applies to what we want to do here this evening and moving forward. The government shall not deny or infringe upon a person's fundamental right to reproductive freedom, which is the right to make and carry out decisions about all matters related to reproductive health, including but not limited to. And I'll stop there. Okay. First and foremost, as it's noted here, a person, and I find it very interesting that they use the word person, because isn't that what we've been fighting for 50 some odd years, right? But a person is anyone, any of you, and any child of any age. So they are not limiting this to adults, they are applying it to all people broadly. Okay, and then the most important element here is actually what's in blue here, but not limited to. But not limited to. So clearly, when I'm talking about cervical cancer screenings, or pap smears, or breast exams, or any kind of birth control, or any other things that have anything to do with the reproductive systems at all, that applies in the, quote, but not limited to, okay? So when we're kind of at home and we're envisioning, okay, how does this apply? Could this apply here? Could this apply here? Could this apply here? I went to numerous different websites, whether it's Planned Parenthood or Johns Hopkins or I've got a whole list of these places. So many of them clearly define that, quote, gender-affirming care is, in fact, reproductive health care, okay? And if you're not up on that, I mean, they're giving our kids hormones to either block their puberty or basically, give girls testosterone or boys estrogen. And in a completely, well, we'll get on that with another topic, but maybe Pam will talk about that. But it's all of those things. But why do they list these things here? They talk about prenatal care, childbirth, postpartum care, birth control, abortion care, miscarriage care, and, quote, respectful birthing conditions? I'm with you, okay, right? They list these things because that's what they're planning to advertise, right? Because in Ohio, they spent $60 million, that's 60 million dollars in Ohio on advertisements on the rare cases. The rare cases in Ohio where a 10-year-old girl crossed state lines to get an abortion because she was raped. These will be the advertising that we'll see over the next 2 months. And if they spent $60 million in Ohio, just imagine what they're going to spend here in the state of Missouri. So those things were put in there not because they actually cared about those things, but because they wanted to advertise towards those things. And they wanted their talking points to be tied to those elements. Okay, so then we'll just kind of read through this quickly. The bullet point is actually the biggest one. The right to reproductive freedom shall not be denied, interfered with, delayed, or otherwise restricted unless the government demonstrates that such action is justified by a compelling government interest achieved by the least restrictive means. Now, I think most of us in this room would actually agree with this. Like, when it comes to our First Amendment rights, we want them to use the, quote, least restrictive means, right? Generally speaking, okay. Except for this part here. Any denial, interference, delay, or restriction of the right to reproductive freedom shall be presumed invalid. So that just negates what happened, the sentence above that. Right? The sentence above it says, well, the government can delay or interfere or help in some way because they have a compelling interest, but the next sentence says they can't. They can't do that at all. And then further on, it tries to define this government interest as, for the purposes of this section, a government interest is compelling only if it is for the limited purposes as the limited effect of improving or maintaining the health of a person seeking care is consistent with widely accepted clinical standards of practice and evidence-based medicine and does not infringe on a person's autonomous decision-making. I don't know about you, but I think almost every law that's on the books conflicts with my, quote, autonomous decision-making. I would say almost every law on the books today. The fact that I had to clip, a seatbelt in my car and go a certain speed on the way here and have my car inspected, those are not my autonomous decision-making. And so basically it violates any and all laws, or it invalidates any and all laws related to reproductive health. So, okay. Now this part is actually, section 4 is actually completely and utterly false. It actually does not apply at all, but let's read through it anyways. So, notwithstanding section 3 of this section, the General Assembly may enact laws that regulate the provision of abortion after, quote, fetal viability. And later on, there's a definition of fetal viability. Provided that under no circumstances shall the government deny, interfere with, or delay, or otherwise restrict an abortion that is in the, quote, good faith judgment of a treating healthcare professional is needed to protect the life or physical or mental health of the pregnant, quote, person. I don't know about you, I've only seen pregnant women. I don't know, maybe they say that there can be pregnant men these days, but the point is, fetal viability is negated by this one phrase here, good faith judgment. Okay? So the good faith judgment of a treating healthcare professional. Note, they didn't say doctor, they didn't say OBGYN, they didn't say physician's assistant, nor did they define healthcare professional. And actually, nowhere in Missouri laws today does it even define what healthcare professional actually is. And so, in a sense, we can assume that it's really anyone who works in the healthcare building or healthcare practice of any kind, including potentially the receptionist or the janitor. Some would say that's going too far, but really it's anyone, maybe even a phlebotomist who would take your blood, could be considered a healthcare professional. And it's only by their, quote, good faith judgment that this is defined, fetal viability. See how this is a red herring? Fetal viability actually means nothing because the, quote, good faith judgment, Colleen McNicholas, who is the head abortionist at Planned Parenthood here in town, specifically says that if the woman is in mental health problems, or the woman is not ready for this pregnancy, then it is not a viable pregnancy. Which has nothing to do with the baby and has everything to do with the mom not being ready for this pregnancy. See how, her good faith judgment would not be the good faith judgment of most of us here in this room. Okay, sorry. And am I doing okay here? We're doing okay. All right. So let's go a little further. Paragraph 5, no person shall be penalized, prosecuted, or otherwise subject to adverse action based on their actual, potential, perceived, or alleged pregnancy outcomes. Generally, we would almost agree with this. This is talking about the mother of a child. And if she gives birth to a live child, or gives birth to a miscarried child or a stillborn child, or she gets an abortion, most people in Missouri would probably say that that's okay. We love the mother. We want to love her. So actually, that already occurs here in the state of Missouri. We want to love her first and not penalize her for whatever happened in her pregnancy. Included but not limited to the same things you see above: miscarriage, stillbirth, or abortion. Now this is where the full immunity comes into play. Nor shall any person assisting a person, again, they threw healthcare professional out the window, didn't they? Right? Nor shall any person assisting a person in exercising their right to reproductive freedom with that person's consent be penalized, prosecuted, or otherwise subjected to adverse actions for doing so. Now, at least they put the consent thing in there, at least in this paragraph, but in the others they didn't. So meaning that at least she has to give some level of consent. But we also know that minors technically can't give consent for most things. But what this basically does, this one sentence here, it negates absolutely any restrictions in any way, shape, or form. So I talked about paying state income taxes, paying property taxes, having basic safety standards, basic zoning standards, HOA requirements. They cannot restrict in any way reproductive health, in any way. Reproductive, quote, health, as they define it, trumps absolutely everything, according to this language. Number 6 here, and this is where some of the government funding might come in play here. The government shall not discriminate against persons providing or obtaining reproductive health care or assisting another person in doing so. That's just the third time they gave full immunity to anyone involved in reproductive health. So 3 times they double down that basically give the abortionist and the abortion industry a free pass. And also the word discriminate is incredibly important, because when they go to get state funding for abortion and all the other things that they do, whether it's at Planned Parenthood or frankly at any of our hospital systems, and they go to get funding for these things, they cannot discriminate based on those things. We were so excited that Planned Parenthood was recently defunded at the state level. It took many, many years to get there, but finally they were. Am I anywhere close there, Pam? Maybe close. She's not yet answering. So, but that would immediately wipe away, because they're discriminating against someone who is providing reproductive health. Okay? If any of these provisions, basically what number 7 is just legalese, you don't have to worry about that. And then number 8 here doubles down on fetal viability. And given the definition above of fetal viability, which is in the quote, good faith judgment of the treating healthcare professional, you actually don't really need a definition down here. But in this case, fetal viability, the point in pregnancy when in the quote, good faith judgment of the treating healthcare professional, and based on particular facts of the case, and where a significant likelihood of the fetus is sustained survival outside the uterus without application of extraordinary medical means or measures. Extraordinary medical measures. And I spent probably an hour trying to figure out what the definition of extraordinary medical measures actually is. One, there's no definition in Missouri law today. It doesn't exist. there are a handful of court cases where around the country that talked about this extraordinary medical measures, and in a sense, it's any medical measure. So if a child is born in a hospital, that's an extraordinary medical measure. So that would mean that if a child needs any kind of medical intervention whatsoever, the moment they are born, they are not viable according to this. And the vast majority of children, the first thing they do is they give them, vitamins on their eyes and shots in their arms or feet, and they take all kinds of different tests and whatnot with them. So in a sense, viability is two things: good faith judgment of the abortionist, which obviously they don't think it's viable based on the actual child. They think it's viable based on the mother. And also the fact these extraordinary measures is not defined and could be really any medical measure. And then, of course, the government is really anyone. Anyone who can restrict them in any way, shape, or form. State, local, municipalities, and also even your local HOA. So that's what's in front of us, ladies and gentlemen. It's my job to make you depressed. Did I do a good job? Great. So I've got some clapping over here. I'll tell you what. I think because it is so incredibly extreme, I think you and I have an incredibly great fighting chance to beat this thing. But we have to do it. I was just talking to Pam here just a moment ago, and it's like, it's not my battle, it's not Pam's, it's not Joe's. By the way, Joe's awesome here. And it's not one of your battle, but literally it's all of our battle. We have to be talking to people about this language. If we're not talking to them about this language, and we're talking about these abstract ideas about rape or incest or these other things that are out here that do matter, but is not the vast majority of what is in this bill or this amendment. The vast majority is hurting our daughters and our wives and the people around us, the neighbors that we have, and basically destroys any and all genuine reproductive health that we would all genuinely rely on a daily basis. It destroys all of that, all for the sake of late-term abortion and unrestricted abortion in the state of Missouri. And we have to be talking about this every single day and talking about it for the next, 40 or 56 days from now until Election Day. We have to talk about this, and to make us feel a little bit better, I'm going to turn it over back to Sherry.